Hey everyone, Chris Collard here. You know, I just got done spending a month down in Mexico, and I got home and somebody asked, how many spare tires do you bring? I've always been in the habit of just carrying one spare tire, you know, with the exception of maybe a couple trips in Africa. So what I want to talk about today is fixing tires and what's allowable by DOT. What are tire shops going to fix? And then what do you do if you like really slice up a sidewall? I've basically used pretty much like 4 kits during the last 35 years. So over here on my left is this is safety seal. So the original. Got the steel handled insertion tool and the reamer, a whole thing of lubricant, lots of plugs. Might be a few other things I threw in here. Oh, here we go, valve core remover, and oh, look at that. Even have a nail that I pulled out of a tire somewhere. Then we've got the ARB kit. So I'm keeping the back of my Dodge. Same thing, we've got good quality steel handles. Air gauge, some valve stem accessories, lube, and you'll notice on these two, they've got this little sliding mechanism on the insertion tool. So this is on the safety seal and the ARB, and what that does is, well, we're going to show you later, but basically it helps with putting the plugs in. These 2 kits are going to do probably about 90% of what you need to fix on the trail with just a basic nail hole or a puncture. All right, so the next one is power tank. I do like this. This is actually a new kit that they just sent me, which was really nice. Actually had one and I have no idea what happened to it. But power tank also includes steel handles on the insertion tool and the reamer. You've got deflator. This is really cool. This is a emergency valve stem that you can actually install from the outside, not without taking the wheel off. Plus it has a normal valve stem, plugs, pliers, razor, air gauge. It even gives you some instructions. In addition to the plugs, and they give you quite a selection of plugs. There's probably like, I don't know, 50 plugs in here. This is a piece of stainless steel wire. What are we gonna use that for? It's for like the Holy Grail of tire repairs. The last one in the lineup is this cool little canvas bag. It's got MOLLE attachment points on it. This is from Extreme Outback Products, and it's just got a ton of stuff in it. All right, patches, all kinds of stuff. This is one I keep in the back of my Baja rig, and I've cannibalized not only the kit from Extreme Outback, but also from others, and just kind of mixed and matched, but super comprehensive kit. So I called George and he sent me a new one. First time I'm opening it, so you got a good selection of high quality strings or yarns or plugs. You know, you can, that's all interchangeable. Handy wipes or hand cleaner, nice steel insertion reamer and insertion tool, and patches. Okay, so this is where Extreme Outback separates themselves from the rest of the crowd, is with patches. Small is a medium, and this guy is what we call the Baja boot. Got your lube, string. What do we need string for? And needles. Interesting. Well, that's for stitching tires. And then we've got some other tools in here. Plenty of cement, a buffer, air gauge, like all the rest, valve cores and caps. On this kit, you notice everything is in a bag. This kit's been in my back of my Tacoma for at least 10 years. And all these bags held up pretty good. So I like that idea. It keeps everything clean when you're ready to use it. Yeah, so that covers 4 high quality kits. So there's a couple things you may have noticed those all have in common. I'll tell you right now, steel handles. They all have steel handles because it takes a whole lot of muscle sometimes, some elbow grease getting plugs in, getting that reamer tool in, and I'll just say I'm going to cover up the manufacturer's label on this one, but you know, you get one of these little $10 jobs, I would avoid these because these are steel. The reamer, the insertion tool is steel. That's a plastic handle. That sucker breaks off. You know, you could find yourself spending a lot more than what you saved on this thing when you go to the emergency room. So as I put all this stuff back in, we talked about the thread and the wire. Thread and wire and patches. So that's all stuff, that's all work that's going to be done from the inside of the tire. It means you got to take the tire off. A couple of tools that are going to make it a heck of a lot easier for you. And that is, starters, a bead breaker. There's two ways you can do it. This is called Tyrepliers. You can get them from Extreme Mount back. They're made in Australia, real high quality deal. And the other thing is, once you get that bead broken, you're gonna need to get that tire off. A couple things, you know, you can use big pry bars. These happen to be tire spoons, they call them, or tire irons. We're gonna use these to like pry that tire over the lip of the rim. Might want a mallet when you start beating on these things, trying to get them in there. The other one that we're gonna do is a HiLift jack. So for Tyrepliers, this is the way you unseated a bead, and we'll get into that. And then you're gonna need good air gauge, a valve core remover, a low pressure gauge, piece of chalk, and air. And get a kit like this. This is ARB's, a single. I think I've had this since 2008 maybe, so 15 years, still working. And then to make things easy for you, or easier for you while you're putting the tires on, this is just a water bottle, poked a couple holes in it. This is the lifesaver right here. This is just like 50-50 mix with dish soap. This is the other thing that I've used, which is just great. Find them at any sporting goods shop. Camp suds. And on that note, did I forget anything? No. All right, let's get to work. First, I want to talk about what kind of tires, what tire damage can actually be repaired. So according to the DOT, you can fix something that is in the center of the tread block, but if it gets off on the shoulder or on the sidewall, your tire's toast. So that's not to say that I haven't plugged tires that, you know, the plug lasted the life of the tire. So plugs work really good. Now I'm talking about punctures in the tread block, not on the sidewall. We're going to punch some holes in this tire with a DeWalt. So we got our holes in this tire, and theoretically you had a nail in there. So you don't need to take the wheel off of the vehicle usually to plug a tire. If it's getting low, first thing you can do is check the valve stem. Make sure that it's not leaking, so you can put a little spit on your finger, stick it down here, find out if you got any bubbles coming off of it. You can also put a little bit of lubricant or water. Water's fine. You can grab your little bottle that we talked about here with holes in it, put a little water around this bead to find out if you got any bubbles coming out. Usually you can just get the vehicle and just roll a little bit at a time, take a look, and if you got a nail in that tire, you're gonna find it. First thing you wanna do is grab your rimming tool, and you want to put a little bit of lube on it. Often it's easier to put a plug in when you've got a little bit of back pressure inside the tire, still got a little air in it. So I would basically try to pull that nail out, pull it out, and then get your reamer in there quickly. Just plug that hole, keep more air from coming out. Note which way the offending nail or spike or whatever it is, note how it came out of the tire. I just drilled these holes straight, but more often than not, that sucker's going to go in on an angle like this, and you start trying to punch a hole straight through, and the actual nail came out like this. One, it's going to be really tough, and two, you're just going to add more damage to the tire. You're going to be trying to punch it through the steel belts rather than actually chasing the hole down, you know, the way that the nail entered. So you want to get that dude, start reaming it out. Just get that sucker in there, and we're actually enlarging this hole a little bit to get that plug in. Now let's talk about these yarns or threads or tire plugs. They're not all created equally. Safety seals are advertised as self-vulcanizing. What that means is it actually has a chemical reaction between the plug and the rubber of the tire to kind of make it as one, kind of like rubber cement, so to speak. Pretty much wanted to slide this, thread it through the end of the insertion tool. It's got a little opening, and the opened end is so you can pull it back out. The power tank kit actually comes with pliers, which can not only be used to pull out a nail, but needle nose pliers are also good for pulling your yarn through. I'm going to put a little bit of lube on it. Pull the reamer out and get that ready to go in, insert it back into the hole. Now I mentioned the units, the ARB and the safety seal that have the slider on them. So this guy is used to basically just press down on the yarn so it doesn't pull out. Like I said, normally not an issue, but I kind of like having them on there. All right, last one's in. I think all of the kits provide a razor blade. I usually like to just cut the excess off so it doesn't get caught on anything. All right, and that is pretty much how you plug a tire. We're just gonna throw some air in here, see how we did. I'm gonna take this all the way up to street pressure. About 25, and check it. A little spit over those openings, or you can just put a little soapy water on it. But basically, they're holding tight, so there you go. 4 plugs, ARB safety seal, the power tank, and extreme out back. So, all right, let's move on to the next round. What happens if you're on the trail and you accidentally clip a valve stem? It's a problem though, because valve stems go in from the inside of the wheel. Kind of leaves you in a pickle if you're on the trail and you rip a valve stem off. It means you're going through the tire removal process, which is a pain. Short of taking that tire off, we got a couple options. This is a Colby valve, emergency valve stem, and it can be sourced through GlueTread. Second one is what comes in the kit with the power tank. Let's start with the Colby. You want to basically slide it in the hole where the valve stem was, get it in there nice and tight. Yep. And then crank down on this wing nut on the outside. I want to put some gloves on for this. Take a little bit of muscle to get that on there. Let's add air, see what happens. Now we're at 26 pounds, so, you know, more than enough to get anybody off the trail. This is a great little fix for an emergency valve stem. So we did the easy work already, plugging and replacing the valve stem. But what happens if you get a gash in your sidewall? Good question, let's find out. Yep. Lose all your air. Yeah, okay, no mysteries there. But how do you fix it? I'm gonna go into the process of unseating the bead on the tire. We got the Tyrepliers, but first we're gonna start with an old school method, and that is the old trusty HiLift jack. So it's at work. You're gonna wanna get the valve stem right underneath where you're gonna be trying to pop the bead off. And you can either put it underneath a bumper on the receiver hitch in the back, or something that basically that will support the vehicle. You're gonna wanna set the jack's foot right at the edge of between the rim and the tire, right at the bead. All right, now it's gonna wanna roll this tire up as I start pressing down, because it's trying to raise the vehicle. So I'm gonna stand on the outside of the tire, the back side of the tire. All right, so it's coming off. Pressing that, oh yeah, there we go, look at that. All right, so that bead is off. It's pretty simple. Gonna flip it over, do the same for the other side. But for the moment, we're gonna air this back up and try the other method, which is using the Tyrepliers. When you're reseating the bead, the ease is going to be dependent on the size of the tire versus the size of the rim. This is a 7-inch rim. It's a 31 1050 tire. So the tire will naturally, the bead of the tire will naturally press up against the rim. Now you put these on like a 10-inch wheel, 10-inch wide wheel, you're going to have a hard time seating that bead. You may be able to, I mean, they can get it done at a tire shop, but when you're doing it on the trail, you may have a really tough time getting that on because the rim is applying no pressure to the bead of the tire. It's just like floating out there. You can't even get it to start. And a little trick to that is you can take a ratchet strap, put it all the way around the tire and start tightening it up, and that will help push the bead out. We've also had, like that time in Venezuela, basically put the tire on top of a jerry can, so it's putting pressure on the from the bead of the tire. Basically, gravity's kind of pushing it down, And then we got on it and just started just pressing on the outside to get that bead closer to it. But man, it was muddy. I mean, we were scooping like chunks of mud out. We didn't have water to clean it. It was a bloody mess. Always want to put a little bit of lubricant on here. Makes it easier to get that bead slipping over. So let's see what happens. You can hear it bubbling, but I can also see pressure building inside. There you go. All right, now for the Tyrepliers. So here are your Tyrepliers and a couple of tire spoons or tire irons. That's how these guys work. Got 2 claws, 1 on each end. This I'm going to call the anchor end. This is the bead de-seating end, I guess. I don't know. But you want to put the anchor end right between the rim and the tire, and you want to pound that sucker down there. And you want to stand the other end up and hammer that sucker in. Hang on to the inner handle, the vertical handle, and grab this dude, the other handle, and just rip it apart like a wishbone, like on a Thanksgiving turkey. Yep, just like that. But that's how Tyrepliers work. Use them on various tires. Obviously, smaller tires are easier. And old crusty tires are really hard. All right, next step is peeling that bead off. These are tire spoons. You can use big pry bars, probably gonna need 2 of them. And they need to be long because you gotta put some leverage on it. Probably gonna wanna mallet. So, before we start, this rim is a 15-inch rim, but that means that it is actually about 16 inches diameter because you got like about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch for the lip of the rim, and that's what keeps the tire on. You want to get the one side of the tire down in the well of the wheel, and that's the center part. It's like going to be the smallest diameter. Use a foot to get that down into the well. They're called spoons. They got a little curved on the end, and sometimes you want to get it in like this. What you're going to do is keep that foot, left foot over here, so that the tire is in the well. You can see the bead of the tire is dropping into the well on the rim. Just keep working your way around. We have success. Clean a little bit of that stuff off of there. It's a good idea to put like a chalk mark right where the valve stem is. The reason is that when you put it back on, if your wheel had been balanced, it will help keep it a little bit balanced. We'll flip it over to the other side. Nope. Want to get this spoon down, and we want to get it inside between the tire and the rim. So we slide it in with the curve out and then turn it over. All right, like that. And this is where you're going to go with another spoon in the same position. Pound this guy around like you did before. On the opposite side, you want to make sure that bead is in the well. Yeah. Okay. That's it. We now have a wheel and a tire. So spoons are pretty handy. What's next? Okay. Got 2 things. One is I'm going to put a regular valve stem in it. Pull the Colby valve stem off. And then we're going to look at how to fix that knife hole somebody just put in this tire. Basically, valve stems come in from the back. So you're going to want to put it in from this side. Try not to grab it near the threads. Keep the cap on it. See, it slipped in there pretty easy. And now we got our new valve stem. And we're ready to tackle the tire. First of all, check the inside of your tire. See if you got any debris in there. our hole is, I don't know, an inch plus in size. So which patch are we going to use? Got 3 different sizes that come in that in the Extreme Outback kit. You got a small one, that's not going to be big enough. You got the Baja boot, that might be a little overkill. This one, the porridge was just right. I'm gonna set that with the face down. Go inside and take a look. So for ease of access, and so you can see what we're doing, I'm gonna expand the edge of that tire just a little bit. Grab the diff cover off of a Dana 30. I'm gonna roll this guy in here. Kind of get an idea of where we're going to put it. I want it to cover not only the cut, but it needs to go probably 1/2 inch or more outside that cut. I'm going to mark it with a Sharpie, because what we're going to do is we're going to take the membrane off to make sure our patch sticks. The tires are rubber and generally is actually porous. To make sure it's very clean, you can take that membrane off with a buffer. Marked. I'm going to clean it. Give it a little brake cleaner. Good rubbing with a clean towel. You actually want to get in here and you're going to buff this thing. You're going to buff out the whole area around the patch. Get all that membrane off. We may end up needing to use a power tool on this. And I actually do carry power tools on the trail, so maybe I'll just grab one. Make this job a lot easier. Now we're going to clean it again. Make sure you don't have any debris, rubber bits. Yeah, you can see there's all kinds of rubber bits in there. I'm going to go back and mark it again. Okay, you're ready to apply glue on the sticky side of this patch. Now before I put that on, I'm just going to visually double check where my gash is. I can see it right there because my Sharpie marks are kind of still there, but not really. You want to lay that patch on there. See coverage all the way around your cut. And press that on nice and hard. So with the other end of the buffer that you get from Extreme Outback, you want to start in the middle. You want to start rolling this all the way around, both sides. Nice and hard. You want that sucker to have good coverage. You start in the middle, work your way out, change directions. This is a super important part of your patch. Get it all the way out to the edges. So you can see we got that pretty much stitched on there. Everything cleaned around it. Hey, there's our plugs that we put in earlier. Poor tire's just getting beat up today. All right, so we've got 4 plugs, 1 patch. Meantime, we are going to see what we can do about like the Holy Grail of very old school tire fixes for a larger gash. But let's see. That's a good one. Probably about 2.5 inches. So you're going to need a number of supplies for this job. Baling wire, the old school. I've got nothing else, and I'm up a creek fix. I have cut off a handful of little stitches. They're about 6 inches long, give or take. Other things you're going to need are needle nose pliers, plug insertion kit, gaggle and plug, RTV silicone. You're also going to need something to clean the surface around the tear, both inside and outside. I am lazy, so I'm going to use a wire wheel. Get it nice and clean around that workspace. That should do it. I'm going to do the inside as well. What we're going to do is we are looking at this workspace. The start of the tear is there. End of the tear is about right there. What we want to do is we want to start 1/2 inch inbound from the tear, 1/2 inch out and 1/2 inch down. I'm going to put a little mark on both sides. Then we're going to come in and we're going to put about every ½ inch, we're going to put another mark. So we're going to take our stitches, we're going to look at where our marks are, about right here, and we're going to bend these just a hair inside the mark. We want it to cinch tight when we tighten that sucker up. We're going to roll it on a nice tight 90-degree bend. Grab the other side, do the same thing. Okay, we got our stitches bent or prepped. Now, you can create these holes with a pointy tool like this one. Instead, we're going to cheat, and I'm going to use my buddy DeWalt. So the diameter of baling wire, at least this baling wire, is about 58 thousandths, or a little less than 1/16 of an inch, approximately right at a 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to go just slightly larger than that, and in my drill bit kit that is 5/64. Again, you want to make sure that they're evenly spaced and marked, and when you put them in, back in, when you put these stitches in, you want to make sure that they are not crossed over, that they're just coming eye for an eye across here. So we'll drill some holes. Get a light in there so you can see what you're doing. Now there'll usually be a long end. I'll try to get the long end in first. Yeah, just twist it around, it'll go. You can kind of see what that looks like. Got a couple of them started, so I'm just going to work my way up the line. All right, when you get them all done, they're going to look something like this on the inside. Now we got these things all the way in there, the stitches. We pull them in tight. I'm just going to do that again just to make sure. All right, we're going to lean these over just a little bit, maybe. All right, and just like a stitch on your skin, except with a little less finesse, I'm going to put a couple twists in it and then grab it with some pliers and tighten that sucker up. Maybe a couple more twists, half twists. Not enough to start tearing the rubber. You can see that was about it, half a twist. Got all those in. You can see why we need to have like a 6-inch piece of wire, because definitely got to have some trailing ends on it to work with. Now we are ready to put patches in, or plugs in. Prepared about 10. Basically we've got 8 stitches, so 7 segments in between. So I'm going to start by trying to get one in right at the very end. Again, you want to make sure that surface is clean and dry in there. And it's nice to use the insertion tool that's got the retainer on it when you're doing this. And you notice that I bent all of the wires down. That's so you don't shish kebab your fingers. Now if we put too many in, it's going to get deformed, which, you know, it's going to get deformed somewhat anyway, but you don't want to overdo it. We're going in between the next one. You can see that plug is squeezing out pretty good into the extra space. It's going to keep going like that. And as you work your way down, you just want to look in between each of the plugs, because they will get in there. This wire is squeezing that gap together, so it's going to try to push these plugs along the length of the gap. So you just want to make sure it's getting full coverage between the plugs. If you come into a road jam, you may have caught one of the wires on the back side. Just work it around a little bit. That's what it looks like. So we're right up against the end there on the cut. You can see this is the last stitch, and that's, well, the second to the last stitch. We've got one that's outbound the cut. But if you look inside They're fairly well mashed together. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. We got to address the other question, and so we just drilled a bunch of holes in here where the wire comes through. The reason we have the stitches on the outside is because the inside is fairly smooth. If you put a big patch inside, that's actually the best option. So what we're gonna do is inside the tire, we're gonna just slather it with silicone. Then I'm gonna quickly try to get the tire on the rim and put some air in it. That pressure is gonna try to squeeze anything out that can come out, and hopefully that silicone is part of that anything, and it'll just squeeze a little bit into those holes and seal them the best that we can do. All right, don't be shy with this stuff. You're not gonna be worried about balancing this tire, that's for sure. Okay, the process of putting the tire back on is reverse of taking it off. You notice down here at the bottom that the way I've got the rim face, basically our damage is on the outside of the tire. The rim is facing up, and it's putting the shallowest part of the rim towards the top, which is where you want it. Make sure that you've lubricated it. So I got my bottle of soapy water out, rubbed everything down really good, and then you just got to get intimate with the tire. If that makes sense. Push that baby on side to side. Yep. Oh, look at that. Nothing was happening here. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. All right. Okay, so our mark for balance, obviously we don't care about that. My goal right now is just to get this thing back on the rim and get some air pressure in it. So grab my tools. Okay, so the process for putting this tire back on is similar to how we took it off here. I'm gonna get one section of the bead down into the well of the tire, just like that. Yep. Stand on it. That's going to help a lot. You can actually work quite a bit of it. If you got it well lubricated, you can work quite a bit of it in just by standing on it. Then you're going to need to get some tire irons in there. Put one in on both sides. If your work area kind of close. Yep. Work them one at a time. Keep weight on your feet. Got that one. Move your foot. Yep. Get the next one. Move your foot. All right, now I'm gonna make that the last side I do here where that repair is. I'm gonna start working my way around. Okay. Easy peasy, right? Yeah. I can put some air in this guy. And pour a little water on it. If you have the soapy water, that's great, but you can run a little water down. Really, it just acts as a lubricant. Yep, it's going. That's a good sound. That's another good sound. How much air do we have in here? 4.3. So I'm gonna bring this up to maybe 20 PSI. Yeah, pretty close, 25. And my hope is that all that silicone is filling these drill holes. So we've got a little bit of air coming out on this last one, both of these ends, just a couple of bubbles. So I'm going to let that sit. It's still, it's got pressure in there, so it's still going to be trying to push some of that silicone into the holes. Good chance you're going to, especially when you start driving on it, that you're going to have little pinholes. The key is that it doesn't like spit the whole thing out or spit a plug out, because then you get to lose a bunch of air. But if you've got to stop, every 30 minutes or something and air up the tire, that's just the way it is. The other thing is that you want to make sure you've got enough air, and the reason I went up to 20 pounds, 25 pounds, about 20 is where I would want to run on this type of repair, because you do not want sidewall flex. This thing starts flexing, it's just going to work away at your surgery, and it's going to want to spit these things out. This tire should go in the back as a spare, unless absolutely necessary. This thing's going to have plenty of time to cure, so like I said, you put 15, 20 pounds of air in it and just let it sit, because that silicone is still in liquid form, and it'll want to fill all these little holes. Bottom line is, and you can tear this off or you get the ends off all this stuff, not a big deal. You just don't want to hit it with anything. You don't want a bunch of air pressure in it, like 60 pounds, and you don't want to hit it on any rocks or anything. The final chapter in Fix Your Tire A to Z, yeah, maybe we'll call it Fix Your Tire A to Z. This poor tire has been beat up. We got a bunch of plugs off the top. We got a patch internal. We got this crazy Frankenstein fix down here with baling wire and plugs and silicone. The next step or the next procedure might just negate those last two that we did. Got a product, I met these guys at SEMA last year, GlueTread, and their product was originally designed for UTVs, and I thought, you know, this stuff would work great on four-wheel drives, and we talked to the guys, and they sent us some, but a buddy of mine, Tyler Larson, who owns Moreflate, the tire inflation systems, he got some of the GlueTread and went up on the Rubicon, this local guy. I think he's running like 39-inch tires, 37s, I don't know. And he put a knife through all four of his tires, used GlueTread, and then drove the trail. So you're like, wow, that's pretty amazing. So hardcore dude on a hardcore trail, and this stuff actually works. So what it is, it's basically just an external patch. The idea is not new, but maybe the application is new. Basically, you've got some rather large patches, you've got small ones. They suggest cutting the size that you need. When you prepare the area, you're going to need to take it, all these, if you cut it through here, you're going to take all this lettering off, because you need to have a nice smooth surface to make contact with the patch, right? This external patch is going to go on something like this. Should we, what do you think? Should we put the hole right here where the A is? Something like that. We're going to have to sand all this off. Actually, I'm not going to sand it. On the trail, they do provide sandpaper, but that looks like just a whole lot of work. So I'm going to use the wire wheel on it. We're going to put a new hole in it. We're going to slide this in. This blade's about 1.5 inches. That is our laceration. I'm just going to, first of all, say, instructions, we don't need no stinking instructions, right? Now what we do, because they got a very particular process on how you make this thing work. All right, I got all my supplies laid out here. First thing they have you do is you open up that gap like this, and you want to apply this tire cement all the way end to end. And I'm gonna let it close up like that. So you can take this and sand this whole thing down. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use the wire wheel. Remember, if you got any lettering, like this lettering on the side, this would all need to be taken down if you've got any of that cut. They basically say you need to go, I think, 1/4 to 1/2 inch around the cut area. We're going to use one of their small patches, get all the residual stuff off of it. Now they also suggest, especially if you're going to need to use this on the trail, is take a razor blade, cut this on a 45 all the way around. And the reason is that it will help deflect stuff instead of grabbing the patch and wanting to pull it off. All right, now this is the other one. This is very specific to their instructions. Basically, you've got a grid pattern, 5 by 5 in an inch square space. I'm going to double check my position. That cut is right there. I'm going to mark it with a Sharpie. So that looks pretty good. The glue comes in a tube, and then it's got these other little tips in the bag, so you're going to want to open the glue, just cut the end off, and then I'll put one of these tips on it. I'm going to start the process of putting the glue on. Get my patch. They did say do not rub it around. Just find where you're going to go and place that sucker on there. Said to hold that down for 60 seconds. And they also mentioned that you can look at your edges if you want to make sure you've got full coverage. You can add a little around the edges. But I went a little wide with it, so I think we're probably okay. So they say that the cure time on this is an hour and you're good to go. But they also have an accelerator and acts as a catalyst, and it's ready to go in just a couple of minutes. It's probably a carcinogenic, but it smells good. Just jump back into the instructions. Hold the patch in place for 30 seconds and allow the adhesive to cure for an hour. With the accelerator, apparently we can air this tire up immediately. So that's crazy. All right, let's see what happens. 0.3. And this has been like 2 minutes since I put the patch on. Let's find out what's going on down there. I'll put some little bit of water over it. That's amazing. Well, I know what I'll be carrying in my rig from now on. The miracle drug. I'm sorry, did I say that? Yeah, the miracle patch. GlueTread. So did they pay me to do this? No, they just sent me this stuff. Like I said, talked to the guys. It looked like an interesting idea. And then of course Tyler did his crazy test on the Rubicon. So this is cool stuff. I will put a link to GlueTread at the bottom of the description, as well as extreme out back, power tank, ARB, safety seal, Tyrepliers. Hope I didn't miss anybody. And his poor little dead tire. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I definitely did. Thanks for spending the time with us today, and we will see you next time.